I describe what I've been through as simply a painful experience, a difficult experience. Being labeled, traumatized, there's something in me that rebels against that. I don't like the police. I don't like the press. I don't like politicians. I don't like people that say, put your trust in me above trusting yourself. I want to show people that things could be a different way.
Alexander Hanscom knows what it means when the system fails. He was 2 years old when his mother Rachel was stabbed 49 times on Wimbledon Common. He clung to her body, begging her to wake up. But the nightmare didn't end with her death. It had only begun. Police targeted the wrong man, Colin Stagg, an innocent loner manipulated and destroyed by desperate investigators. Meanwhile, the real killer, Robert Napper, walked free. He killed again and again. 16 years would pass before DNA revealed the truth. This case shattered British justice, exposed the dangers of psychological profiling, and proved that institutions meant to protect us can become instruments of destruction. When those in power demand trust while silencing truth, who becomes the victim? This is the story of justice that came too late. Before we dive into this story, tell us where you're watching from and ask yourself, when does the pursuit of justice become its own crime? The Old Bailey stands as a monument to British justice, its copper dome catching the December light in 2008. Inside courtroom number 1, the air is thick with anticipation. Reporters pack the gallery, notebooks ready, cameras banned, but eyes sharp. 16 years of silence are about to end. Robert Clive Napper enters flanked by guards. His face is pale, expression vacant. He wears civilian clothes but moves like someone long institutionalized. Broadmoor Hospital has been his home since 1995, but today he answers for a crime committed 3 years earlier, the murder that shocked a nation and destroyed faith in those sworn to protect it. Victor Temple QC rises for the crown. His voice carries the weight of a decade and a half. Your Honor, the defendant pleads guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. The words echo. In the gallery, Andre Hanscom closes his eyes. His partner Rachel has been dead since July 1992. Their son Alexander, now 18, sits beside him, a young man who spent his earliest years in the shadow of his mother's unsolved murder. Mr. Justice Griffith Williams leans forward. He has reviewed the psychiatric reports, the forensic evidence, the timeline of investigative failure. This plea is accepted by the Crown? Temple nods. It is, Your Honor. The psychiatric evidence is overwhelming. The judge's gaze settles on Napper. You are, in any view, a very dangerous man. The sentence will be indefinite detention. No release date, no second chance, Broadmoor forever. But this ending is not the story. The story begins 16 years earlier, when a morning walk became a mother's last moments and set in motion one of Britain's most catastrophic miscarriages of justice. July 15, 1992. The sky above Wimbledon Common is cloudless blue. Rachael Nickell, 23 years old, walks with her dog Molly and her son Alexander, just 2 years old. She is beautiful, kind, loved by everyone who knows her. Andre is at home. It's a routine morning, one they've done 100 times. The common is busy with joggers, dog walkers, families, but in a secluded wooded area, away from the main paths, something terrible waits. At approximately 10:20 in the morning, Rachel and Alex pass through the trees. What happens next takes less than 5 minutes. A man attacks. He stabs Rachel 49 times. Her throat is cut. She is sexually assaulted. The violence is frenzied, brutal, incomprehensible. Alex clings to his mother's body. Blood soaks the grass. A passerby hears the child's voice. High, desperate, confused. Wake up, Mummy! Wake up! The emergency call goes out at 10:32. Police arrive within minutes. The scene is horrific. Rachel's body lies partially clothed, surrounded by evidence of savage violence. Detectives mark footprints, collect fabric fibers, photograph blood patterns. Alex, miraculously unharmed physically, is lifted away still calling for his mother. By noon, the story breaks. Television crews descend on the common. Headlines scream, young mother slain in park. Toddler watches mum murdered. The nation reels. Wimbledon Common, a place of family picnics and Sunday walks, has become a crime scene that will haunt public consciousness for decades. At Metropolitan Police Headquarters, the pressure begins immediately. The media demands answers, the public demands safety, and the detectives assigned to the case, led by newly promoted Detective Inspector Keith Petter, know they are facing one of the most high-profile investigations in recent memory. They have no idea they are about to make the worst mistake of their careers. The investigation, designated Operation Edsel, mobilizes hundreds of officers. Over 500 people are interviewed. 32 men are arrested and released. The common is searched grid by grid. Every dog walker, every regular visitor, every man seen in the area that day is tracked down and questioned. The forensic evidence is frustratingly thin. No fingerprints match the national database. The weapon, a knife, is never found. DNA technology exists, but is primitive compared to what will come later. Early tests on fabric samples yield nothing conclusive. The killer left blood and biological material, but without a suspect to compare it to, the evidence sits in storage, waiting. Petter and his team work 18-hour days. The case dominates the news. Rachel's face is everywhere. Her smile, her vibrant youth, the senselessness of her death. The pressure from above is relentless. Solve this. Find him before he kills again. Then, through a BBC Crime Watch appeal, a name emerges. Colin Stagg. He is a local man, unemployed, living alone on the Alton estate in Roehampton. He walks his dog on the common regularly. On the morning of the murder, he was there. He has no alibi beyond his own testimony. He fits, according to initial profiling, a certain type. A loner, sexually inexperienced, possibly prone to violent fantasy. Detectives interview Stagg multiple times. He is cooperative, nervous, eager to help. He denies any involvement, but the more they talk to him, the more convinced they become. He is odd, awkward. He admits to sunbathing naked in secluded areas of the common. He has written sexually explicit letters to women he met through Lonely Hearts columns. There is no forensic evidence linking him to the murder. No witness places him at the scene at the right time. No physical proof whatsoever. But Petter is under immense pressure, and Paul Britton, a criminal psychologist with a growing reputation, is about to offer what seems like a solution. Paul Britton arrives at Scotland Yard with confidence and credentials. He has worked on other high-profile cases. He believes he can build a psychological profile of Rachael Nickell's killer. And more importantly, he believes he can help prove Colin Stagg is that man. In a briefing room thick with cigarette smoke and desperation, Britton presents his analysis. The killer, he explains, is a sexual sadist. He fantasizes about violence during sex. He likely has difficulty forming normal relationships. He seeks control, dominance, the fusion of sexuality and death. Petter listens intently. Everything Britton describes seems to fit Stagg. The Lonely Hearts letters, the awkward social behavior, the sexual fantasies Stagg himself has admitted to in correspondence. But there is still no evidence. Without a confession or forensic proof, the Crown Prosecution Service will never authorize charges. Britton proposes a solution, an undercover operation. Use a female officer to befriend Stagg. Create a relationship based on shared interests. Draw him out. Make him feel safe. Get him to confess. The plan is approved at the highest levels. This is unprecedented, controversial, but the desperation is real. The media circus is unrelenting, and Britton assures them, if Stagg is the killer, he will reveal himself. Enter Lizzie James. Not her real name, but the code name assigned to a young undercover officer from the Metropolitan Police Special Operations Group. She is in her late 20s, blonde, attractive. She has done undercover work before, but never anything like this. Never anything that requires her to manufacture intimacy, to pretend romantic interest, to probe the darkest corners of a suspect's psyche. Britton coaches her. He designs a backstory. Lizzie, he explains, must present herself as someone with violent sexual fantasies of her own. She must create a persona that mirrors what the killer desires. Only then will Stagg, if he is guilty, feel safe enough to confess. Lizzie agrees. The operation begins. No one involved understands the damage about to unfold. The correspondence between Lizzie James and Colin Stagg begins innocuously. She reaches out through a mutual friend, someone Stagg has written to through a Lonely Hearts column. She says she finds his letters interesting. She wants to know more about him. Stagg is lonely, desperately so. The attention from an attractive woman is intoxicating. He writes back eagerly. They begin to meet, carefully choreographed encounters in public places, always under surveillance. Lizzie, following Britton's script, escalates slowly. She mentions her own sexual fantasies. She hints at dark desires. She tells Stagg she is looking for someone who understands her, someone uninhibited, someone who isn't afraid of intensity. Stagg responds. His letters become more explicit. He describes fantasies involving knives, control, domination. Lizzie pushes further. She tells him she once took part in a ritual, something violent, something involving the death of a woman and child. She says it was the best sex she ever had. This is the trap, the confession bait. If Stagg is guilty, Britton has assured them, he will reciprocate. He will reveal his own involvement in Rachel's murder, seeking approval, connection, understanding. But Stagg does not confess. Instead, he is confused. Uncomfortable. He writes that he has never done anything like what she describes. When Lizzie becomes more insistent, when she suggests that only by sharing such an experience could they truly be together, Stagg replies with words that will later haunt the investigators. "I'm terribly sorry, but I haven't." The operation drags on for months. 7 months of letters, phone calls, meetings. Lizzie lives a double life. At work, she is a detective chasing a killer. At home, she cannot escape the persona she has created. The lines blur. The psychological toll is immense. Finally, despite Stagg's repeated denials, the decision is made. There is enough. The letters show his fantasies. The meetings show his willingness to engage. On August 17, 1993, Colin Stagg is arrested for the murder of Rachael Nickell. The arrest happens at dawn. Officers surround Stagg's small flat on the Alton estate. He is still in bed when they knock. He opens the door in confusion, bleary-eyed, and finds himself facing a wall of Metropolitan Police officers. "Colin Stagg, you are under arrest for the murder of Rachael Nickell," he stammers. "What? No, I didn't do anything." But the handcuffs are already on. His flat is searched top to bottom. Officers seize his clothing, his dog leads, his personal papers, the letters from Lizzie James. They photograph everything. They bag evidence. There is no blood, no knife, no forensic connection to the crime scene. But the police believe the letters are enough. Britton has told them the psychological evidence is damning. Stagg is taken to the station. He is interviewed for hours. He denies everything. He insists he has never harmed anyone. He admits to the fantasies in the letters, but says they were just words. Just a lonely man trying to connect with a woman who seemed to understand him. Outside, the media erupts. Colin Stagg's face is plastered across every newspaper. Wimbledon Common. Killer arrested. Rachel's murderer caught. The public, desperate for closure, accepts the narrative. Stagg is vilified. His life is dissected. His awkwardness, his loneliness, his sexual fantasies, all are presented as proof of guilt. Inside the justice system, some voices raise concerns. Where is the forensic evidence? Where is the proof beyond Britton's profile and Lizzie's undercover work? The Crown Prosecution Service reviews the case carefully. Eventually, they authorize charges. Colin Stagg will stand trial for murder. He is remanded in custody. For 14 months, he sits in prison, labeled one of Britain's most notorious killers. The press hounds his family. Strangers threaten him. He becomes a symbol of evil. A man convicted in the court of public opinion long before any jury hears the evidence. But in a courtroom at the Old Bailey, a judge named Mr. Justice Ognall is about to change everything. September 1994. The trial of Colin Stagg begins at the Old Bailey. The prosecution, confident in their case, prepares to present the letters, the meetings, the psychological profile. They expect a conviction. Mr. Justice Ognall reviews the evidence in a pre-trial hearing. He listens as the prosecution outlines Operation Edsel. He reads the letters between Lizzie James and Stagg. He hears Paul Britton's testimony about the psychological profile. Then he makes his ruling. This court has seen evidence obtained through methods that can only be described as deceptive conduct of the grossest kind. His voice is calm, but firm. The police have shown excessive zeal. They have attempted to incriminate the defendant through means that violate fundamental principles of fairness. The undercover evidence is inadmissible. The letters cannot be used. The psychological profile is not proof. Without these elements, the prosecution has nothing. No forensics, no witnesses, no case. Victor Temple, then a junior prosecutor, can only watch as the foundation crumbles. The Crown withdraws its case. Colin Stagg is acquitted. The courtroom erupts. Reporters rush to file stories. Outside, the public is furious. "Killer walks free," scream the headlines. Rachel's murderer escapes justice. Mr. Justice Ognall himself becomes a target. Editorials question his judgment. Talk shows debate whether the legal system has failed. Colin Stagg walks out of the Old Bailey a free man, but not really free. His name is synonymous with murder. He cannot get a job. He is harassed in the street. He lives under constant suspicion. The trial may have ended, but the punishment continues. Keith Petter faces intense criticism. His career stalls. Lizzie James, the undercover officer, begins to unravel. The operation has traumatized her. She takes sick leave, then early retirement. She will later sue the Metropolitan Police for psychiatric damage, settling for £125,000. And Rachael Nickell's murder remains unsolved. The real killer is still out there, and he is about to kill again. The collapse of the Stag prosecution sends shockwaves through British law enforcement. The Metropolitan Police face a public relations disaster. £3 million spent, 14 months of Colin Stagg's life destroyed, and no justice for Rachael Nickell. Internal reviews begin. How did this happen? How did a case built entirely on psychological profiling and undercover manipulation reach trial? The answers are uncomfortable. The pressure from media and public, the desperation for a conviction, the over-reliance on a single expert, Paul Britton, whose theories now seem less credible. Britton himself faces scrutiny. The British Psychological Society investigates him for professional misconduct. The charges involve his role in Operation Edsel, the ethics of designing such an operation, the reliability of his profile. Due to procedural delays, the case is eventually discontinued, but the damage to his reputation is done. For Andre Hanscom and young Alexander, the acquittal is devastating. They have lived with the belief that justice was coming. Now they are back at the beginning. Worse, they must watch as Colin Stagg becomes a tabloid fixture, selling his story, claiming victimhood, while their own trauma is sidelined. The investigation officially goes cold. Detectives move on to other cases. The evidence, the blood samples, the fabric fibers, the biological material from the crime scene sits in storage. Without new leads, without new technology, there is nowhere to go. But in forensic labs around the country, techniques are advancing. DNA analysis is becoming more sophisticated. What was impossible in 1992 is becoming routine by the early 2000s. And in 2002, a cold case review team at Scotland Yard decides to take another look at the Rachael Nickell murder. They do not know it yet, but they are about to uncover evidence that will expose not just a killer, but a catastrophic series of missed opportunities. Chances to stop Robert Napper before he killed Rachael, before he killed again. The truth is about to emerge, and it will be more damning than anyone imagined. To understand what went wrong, we must go back to 1989, 3 years before Rachael Nickell was murdered. Robert Napper is 23 years old, living at home with his mother, Pauline. His childhood has been traumatic. An abusive father, foster care, psychiatric treatment, and sexual assault at age 13. He is introverted, obsessively tidy, and increasingly violent. One day, Napper confesses something to his mother. He tells her he has raped a woman on Plumstead Common. Horrified, Pauline Napper does exactly what she should. She picks up the phone and calls the police. A report is filed. Somewhere in the Metropolitan Police system, a note is made. Robert Napper has confessed to rape. Follow-up is required, but the follow-up never happens. The detective assigned to the report cannot find a matching case in the database. The call is dismissed as unreliable. No one interviews Napper. No one takes a statement from his mother. The report is buried. What the police did not know, or failed to connect, is that 8 weeks earlier, a woman had reported a brutal rape. She was attacked in her home, in front of her children, by a masked man who came through her back door armed with a Stanley knife. Her house backed onto Plumstead Common. If the police had investigated properly, they would have found the match. They would have arrested Napper. They would have prevented what came next. Instead, Napper remains free. Over the following years, he escalates. He becomes the Green Chain Rapist, responsible for at least 70 attacks across southeast London. He stalks women on wooded pathways. He uses knives. He becomes increasingly violent. And then, in July 1992, he kills Rachael Nickell. Years later, the Independent Police Complaints Commission will investigate. Their report, released in 2010, will be scathing, a catalog of bad decisions and errors. Had the 1989 report been followed up, Robert Napper could have been off the streets before he killed Rachael Nickell. But in 1989, the warning is ignored. The system fails, and the consequences are unimaginable. 2002, a decade after Rachael's murder, the Metropolitan Police form a cold case review team as part of Operation Enigma, a national effort to re-examine unsolved murders of women. The Rachael Nickell case is high on the list. The team is small but determined. They bring fresh eyes and new technology. DNA profiling has advanced dramatically. Techniques that did not exist in 1992 can now extract and analyze genetic material from tiny samples. The evidence from the crime scene, preserved carefully for a decade, is pulled from storage. Rachael's clothing, fabric samples, adhesive tape used to collect biological material from her body. In 1992, forensic scientists found no usable DNA. But that was because the technology was not sensitive enough, and the scientists stopped looking when they encountered difficulties. The cold case team sends everything to Forensic Access, an independent lab in Oxfordshire, led by Dr. Angela Gallup. She is one of Britain's most respected forensic scientists. Methodical, Brilliant, unafraid to challenge established narratives. Dr. Gallup assigns a team. Roy Green leads the re-examination. They start from scratch, questioning every assumption from the original analysis. Why did the first scientists find no DNA on the adhesive tape? The tape should have been covered in Rachel's own skin cells. The absence of any DNA suggests a procedural error. They retest using more sensitive methods, and this time they find it. Male DNA, not from Rachel's partner, Andre Hanscom, not from her son, Alexander, from someone else. The profile is partial but significant. The team compares the sample against the National DNA Database. No immediate match. But they have something now, a genetic signature that can rule out suspects. Or, if they find the right person, confirm guilt beyond any doubt. The investigation is no longer cold. It is alive again. And Dr. Gallup's team has just taken the first step toward solving one of Britain's most notorious unsolved murders. What they do not yet realize is that the killer's DNA is already in the system. They just need to look in the right place. Dr. Angela Gallup's team works with painstaking precision. Months pass as they test and retest samples. They extract DNA from hair combings taken from Alexander Hanscom in 1992. In those combings, they find something extraordinary, a tiny flake of red paint. Red paint. It seems insignificant, but Roy Green, one of Dr. Gallup's lead examiners, notices a pattern. He has been studying other violent crimes in southeast London from the same period, cases involving a man already in custody, Robert Napper. Napper has been held at Broadmoor Hospital since 1995, convicted of 2 horrific murders. In November 1993, 16 months after Rachael Nickell was killed, Napper murdered Samantha Bissay and her 4-year-old daughter Jasmine in their home in Plumstead. The crime scene was so disturbing that the police photographer assigned to it took 2 years of medical leave. Roy Green sees similarities, the modus operandi, the level of violence, the targeting of women with young children. He suggests running the DNA from Rachel's case against Napper's profile. In July 2003, the match comes back. The DNA on Rachel's clothing belongs to Robert Napper. The certainty is overwhelming, the kind of statistical probability that eliminates all doubt. Dr. Gallup's team digs deeper. They request Napper's possessions from Broadmoor, items returned to him by police years earlier. Among them is a red-painted metal toolbox. Napper was known to be protective of this toolbox. When tested, the paint matches the flake found in Alexander's hair. More evidence surfaces. A shoe print from the Nickell crime scene matches Napper's footwear. The forensic links pile up, each one more damning than the last. In 2006, Detective Sergeant Alan Jackaman, the officer who originally arrested Napper for the Bissay murders, interviews him at Broadmoor. Napper, diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and Asperger's syndrome, is evasive, but the DNA does not lie. On November 28, 2007, Robert Napper is formally charged with the murder of Rachael Nickell. Justice, long delayed, is finally within reach. Robert Clive Napper was born on February 25, 1966, in Erith, southeast London. His childhood was a catalogue of trauma. His father, Brian, was violent, beating his mother, Pauline, regularly. When his parents divorced, Napper was 9 years old. He and his siblings were placed in foster care and underwent psychiatric treatment for 6 years. At 13, Napper was sexually assaulted by a family friend during a camping trip. His mother later said this event changed him completely. He became introverted, reclusive, obsessively tidy. He bullied his siblings and spied on his sister while she was naked. By his early 20s, Napper's behavior had become dangerous. The 1989 rape confession to his mother was ignored. He was arrested in 1986 for possession of an air gun, but released with a minor conviction. In 1992, while the Green Chain rapes were escalating, police interviewed Napper multiple times but ruled him out because he was over 6 feet tall. The suspect profile said the rapist was 5'7". They never considered that witness reports might be conflicting or inaccurate. In October 1992, Napper was arrested for stalking a civilian police employee. Officers searched his flat and found disturbing materials. Knives, maps of London marked with dots corresponding to attack sites, a notebook detailing potential victims. But no one connected these findings to the Nickell investigation, which at that point was focused entirely on Colin Stagg. Then, in November 1993, Napper committed his most horrific crime yet. He broke into Samantha Bissay's basement flat in Plumstead. He stabbed the 27-year-old mother to death, then sexually assaulted and suffocated her 4-year-old daughter, Jasmine. He mutilated Samantha's body with such savagery that the crime scene became a case study in extreme violence. A fingerprint found in the flat led to Napper's arrest in May 1994. He was convicted in October 1995 and sentenced to indefinite detention at Broadmoor. In December 1995, detectives questioned him about the Nickell murder. He denied involvement. It would take another 12 years and advances in forensic science to prove the truth. Robert Napper was the Wimbledon Common killer. December 2007. Robert Napper appears before magistrates at the City of Westminster Magistrates Court. He is 41 years old, gaunt from years in Broadmoor, his mind fractured by paranoid schizophrenia. The charges read, Robert Clive Napper, you are charged with the murder of Rachael Jane Nickell on July 15, 1992, at Wimbledon Common, London. He shows no emotion, no recognition. His psychiatric reports describe a man who believes he has won the Nobel Peace Prize, that he has millions of pounds in the bank, that he fought in Angola. Bail is granted on condition he remains at Broadmoor. This is not release, merely a legal formality. He will never leave the hospital grounds except under maximum security. The case moves slowly through the system. Psychiatric evaluations are ordered. The Crown Prosecution Service must determine whether Napper is fit to stand trial, whether he can understand the proceedings against him. Victor Temple QC, now a senior prosecutor, takes the lead. He reviews the evidence meticulously. The DNA is ironclad. The forensic links are overwhelming. But there is a complication. Napper's mental state. The psychiatric reports are unanimous. He suffers from severe, untreatable paranoid schizophrenia. He was likely experiencing psychotic symptoms when he killed Rachael. Under British law, this opens the door to a plea of diminished responsibility, not innocence, but an acknowledgement that his mental illness reduced his culpability. The prosecution weighs options. They could push for a full murder trial, force a jury to hear every detail. But the psychiatrists are clear. Napper's illness was profound even in 1992. A murder conviction might be overturned on appeal. The safer path, the path that ensures he never walks free, is to accept a manslaughter plea. In January 2008, Napper formally pleads not guilty to murder. The trial is scheduled for November, but behind the scenes, negotiations continue. The goal is not vengeance. The goal is certainty that Napper will remain locked away forever. By December 2008, everything is in place. The final act begins. December 18, 2008. The Old Bailey is packed. Andre Hanscom is there. Older now, weary from 16 years of waiting. Alexander, no longer a toddler but a young man of 18, sits beside him. Media fill the gallery. This is the moment they have all anticipated. Victor Temple QC rises. Your Honor, members of the court, this case has spanned 16 years. It has been marked by tragedy, by investigative failure, and ultimately by the triumph of forensic science over time. He lays out the timeline with precision. July 15, 1992, Rachael Nickell murdered. The initial investigation focused on Colin Stagg, a man who had nothing to do with the crime. Operation Edsel, the undercover operation, collapsed in humiliation. The case went cold. But the evidence never disappeared, Temple continues. It waited. And when technology advanced, when forensic scientists like Dr. Angela Gallup applied new methods, the truth emerged. He presents the DNA evidence. Charts project onto screens showing the match probability, 1 in a billion. The genetic material on Rachael's clothing matches Robert Napper. The red paint flake matches his toolbox. The shoe print matches his footwear. Temple walks the court through Napper's history. The 1989 rape confession ignored by police. The green chain attacks. The Bisset murders. This man was a serial offender. He escalated from rape to murder, and at every step, opportunities were missed. He pauses, letting the weight settle. Had the Metropolitan Police followed up on Napper's mother's report in 1989, Rachael Nickell might be alive today. Samantha Bisset and her daughter Jasmine might be alive. Dozens of women who were raped might have been spared. The courtroom is silent. The prosecution's case is not just about proving guilt. It is about accountability, about exposing the failures that allowed a dangerous man to remain free for years. Temple sits down. The defense is next, but everyone in the room knows the outcome. This is not a contest. It is a reckoning. Dr. Angela Gallup takes the stand. At 73 years old, she is still sharp, still passionate about the science that has defined her career. She has worked on some of Britain's most famous cases, but the Rachael Nickell investigation holds special significance. Victor Temple approaches. Dr. Gallup, can you explain to the court how DNA evidence from 1992 remained viable for analysis 16 years later? Certainly, she begins. DNA is remarkably stable when properly preserved. The samples from Rachel's clothing were stored under controlled conditions, sealed, refrigerated, protected from degradation. What changed was not the evidence itself, but our ability to extract and analyze it. She describes the original 1992 testing. The Metropolitan Police Forensic Science Laboratory failed to find any DNA on the adhesive tape samples. This should have been a red flag. The tape was applied directly to Rachel's skin. It should have been covered in her own DNA. The fact that they found nothing suggested a technical problem, not an absence of evidence. Temple nods. And when your team retested? We used low copy number DNA analysis, Dr. Gallup explains. This technique amplifies tiny amounts of genetic material, amounts that would have been invisible to 1992 technology. We found male DNA, not from Rachel's partner, not from her son, from someone else. She clicks through slides showing the genetic profile. We ran this profile against the National DNA Database. It matched Robert Napper with a probability exceeding 1 in a billion. Temple pauses for effect. 1 in a billion. Can you put that in perspective for the court? Dr. Gallup smiles slightly. To put it simply, Robert Napper's DNA was on Rachael Nickell's clothing. The statistical certainty eliminates reasonable doubt. She continues, describing the red paint flake, the toolbox, the shoe print. Each piece of evidence reinforces the others. Forensic science is about building a picture. Any single piece might be challenged, but when multiple independent lines of evidence converge, the conclusion becomes inescapable. When Dr. Gallup steps down, the prosecution's case is unassailable. The courtroom has seen truth in its purest form, science overcoming human error. The defense calls Dr. Philip Joseph, a consultant forensic psychiatrist from Broadmoor Hospital. He has evaluated Robert Napper extensively over the past 13 years. His testimony will determine whether Napper is convicted of murder or manslaughter. David Fisher, QC, representing Napper, begins. Dr. Joseph, can you describe the defendant's mental state? Dr. Joseph's voice is measured, clinical. Robert Napper suffers from paranoid schizophrenia, one of the most severe forms of mental illness. His condition is treatment-resistant. Despite years of medication and therapy, he continues to experience profound delusions and hallucination. Fisher presses. When did this illness begin? Our assessment indicates symptoms were present long before the Rachael Nickell murder. His behavioral changes after being sexually assaulted at age 13, his increasing social isolation, his bizarre beliefs, all consistent with early-onset schizophrenia. And in July 1992, when Rachael Nickell was killed, Dr. Joseph does not hesitate. He was experiencing active psychotic symptoms. His grasp on reality was severely compromised. The nature of the attack, the frenzied violence, the sexual component suggests a break from rational thought. Fisher introduces medical records. Napper's delusions are documented. He believes he has won the Nobel Peace Prize, that he has an advanced degree in mathematics, that he fought as a soldier in Angola. None of it is true. His mind constructs realities that do not exist. Does this mean he did not understand his actions were wrong? No, Dr. Joseph clarifies. Diminished responsibility does not mean absence of responsibility. He knew he was committing an act of violence, but his ability to control his impulses, to appreciate the full moral weight of his actions, that was significantly impaired by his illness. Mr. Justice Griffith Williams listens carefully. The law is clear. If the mental illness substantially impaired Napper's judgment, a manslaughter plea is appropriate. The psychiatrists agree. The prosecution agrees. The only question now is the sentence. Fisher sits. The psychiatric evidence is complete. Robert Napper will not face a murder conviction, but he will never be free. The moment arrives. Robert Napper stands in the dock, flanked by guards. His face is blank, unreadable. Mr. Justice Griffith Williams addresses him directly. Mr. Napper, you have been charged with the murder of Rachael Jane Nickell. How do you plead? David Fisher, QC, speaks for his client. Your Honor, the defendant wishes to enter a plea of guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Victor Temple, QC, rises. The Crown accepts this plea, Your Honor. The psychiatric evidence is overwhelming. The defendant's mental illness substantially impaired his responsibility at the time of the offense. The judge nods slowly. This plea is entered with the agreement of all parties. It is, Your Honor. A murmur runs through the courtroom. This is not the outcome many expected. Some wanted a full murder trial, wanted Napper to face the full weight of judgment, but the law recognizes mental illness as a mitigating factor. The plea is both legally sound and practically necessary. Andre Hanscom sits motionless. 16 years of waiting have led to this. Not the vindication of a murder conviction, but the certainty that Napper will never harm anyone again. It is not perfect justice, but it is closure of a kind. Alexander, beside his father, stares at the man who killed his mother. He was 2 years old when it happened. He has no memory of the attack itself, only the aftermath, the years of media attention, the move to France to escape the scrutiny, the long shadow of unresolved grief. Mr. Justice Griffith Williams continues. The plea of guilty to manslaughter is accepted by this court. Sentencing will proceed immediately. The public gallery fills with whispers. Reporters scribble notes. Outside, camera crews wait for statement. The story that has gripped Britain for 16 years is entering its final chapter. Inside courtroom number 1, the judge prepares to deliver the sentence that will define the rest of Robert Napper's life. Mr. Justice Griffith Williams removes his glasses, folds his hands, and speaks with quiet authority. Robert Clive Napper, you have pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of Rachael Nickell. This court has reviewed the psychiatric evidence. Your mental illness is profound and untreatable. You remain a danger to the public. He pauses, allowing the words to settle. This was a crime of unspeakable brutality. A young mother was murdered in front of her child. The violence was extreme. The impact on her family, on her community, on public confidence and safety, immeasurable. Napper shows no reaction. He stands like a statue, disconnected from the proceedings. However, the judge continues, the law recognizes that mental illness can diminish culpability. You were not in full control of your faculties. Your schizophrenia substantially impaired your judgment. He looks directly at Napper. But make no mistake, you are in any view a very dangerous man. You cannot be allowed to return to society. The risk is too great. The sentence is delivered. Indefinite detention at Broadmoor Hospital. You will remain in secure psychiatric care for the rest of your natural life. You will not be released unless and until it can be proven, which seems highly unlikely, that you no longer pose a threat. The gavel falls. Napper is led away. He does not look back. Outside the courtroom, Assistant Commissioner John Yates of the Metropolitan Police reads a prepared statement. Today's conviction brings closure to one of the most tragic cases in British criminal history. We acknowledge the failures in the original investigation. We apologize to Colin Stagg for the suffering he endured, and we offer our deepest condolences to the family of Rachael Nickell. The statement is carefully worded, legally precise, but the subtext is clear. The Metropolitan Police failed catastrophically. They pursued an innocent man while the real killer remained free. They ignored warnings. They missed opportunities. And because of those failures, more people died. Andre Hanscom speaks briefly to reporters. Justice has come, but it has come too late. My partner is gone. My son grew up without his mother. That cannot be changed. But at least now we know the truth. The headlines write themselves. Wimbledon common killer finally sentenced. Napper locked away forever. 16-year nightmare ends. Colin Stagg's compensation claim moves through the system with unusual speed. The Home Office recognizes the enormity of the injustice. Stagg spent 14 months in custody for a crime he did not commit. He was vilified by the press, threatened by the public, and left jobless and traumatized. In August 2008, the compensation is announced, £706,000. It is a record sum for wrongful prosecution in the UK. Lord Brennan QC, representing Stagg, issues a statement. Mr. Stagg was the victim of manipulation and deception on an unprecedented scale. The Metropolitan Police used tactics that violated every principle of fairness. This compensation acknowledges the irreparable harm done to him. Stagg himself speaks to reporters outside his solicitor's office. He is older now, cautious, still bearing the scars of public judgment. The money doesn't give me back those years. It doesn't erase what people thought of me, but it's an acknowledgement that I was innocent. That's what matters. The undercover officer known as Lizzie James also receives compensation. Her settlement, finalized in 2001, was $125,000. She took early retirement in 1998, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. The operation destroyed her career and her mental health. She was asked to do something no officer should be asked to do: manufacture intimacy with a suspect, probe his darkest fantasies, live a lie for months while the world watched. She has since disappeared from public life, protected by a lifetime anonymity order. Her real name remains unknown. She has buried her past and started over. But those who worked with her say the trauma never left her. The Stagg case becomes a case study in what not to do. Police academies use it to teach officers about the dangers of tunnel vision, the risks of psychological profiling, The ethical limits of undercover work. Law schools analyze Mr. Justice Ognall's ruling. Forensic psychology programs dissect Paul Britton's mistakes. But for Stagg, the compensation is bittersweet. The money cannot restore his reputation. The apologies cannot undo the years of suspicion. He remains, in the minds of some, the man who got away with it. The truth, documented in DNA and courtroom testimony, struggles against the power of lingering doubt. In November 2009, Andre Hanscom files a formal complaint with the Independent Police Complaints Commission. He wants answers. How did the Metropolitan Police fail so completely? How did they miss so many opportunities to stop Robert Napper? The IPCC investigation takes months. Detectives review thousands of pages of case files, interview retired officers, trace decision-making chains. What they uncover is damning. In June 2010, the report is published. Commissioner Rachel Serfontein presents the findings. This investigation has revealed a catalog of bad decisions and errors by the Metropolitan Police. Throughout the investigations into the Green Chain rapes and Rachael Nickell's death, opportunities were missed to apprehend Robert Napper. The failures are itemized. 1989. Napper's mother reports his rape confession. No follow-up, no investigation. The opportunity to catch him before he escalated is lost. 1992. Napper is interviewed multiple times during the Green Chain rape investigation. He is eliminated as a suspect because he is over 6 feet tall. The decision is based on a single witness description, ignoring conflicting reports. 1992. After Rachel's murder, witnesses describe a man on Wimbledon Common behaving suspiciously, washing his hands in a stream. The descriptions resemble Napper. He is never questioned. 1993. Napper is arrested for stalking. A search of his flat reveals maps marked with attack locations, knives, disturbing materials. No one connects this to the Nickell investigation, which is entirely focused on Colin Stagg. Serfontein's conclusion is stark. Without these errors, Robert Napper could have been off the streets before he killed Rachael Nickell. Samantha Bissay and her daughter Jasmine would also have been saved. Numerous women who suffered violent sexual attacks at his hands might have been spared. The report stops short of recommending disciplinary action. Too much time has passed. Many of the officers involved have retired, but the institutional failures are undeniable. Andre Hanscom reads the report with quiet fury. They failed my partner. They failed our son. They failed every victim who came after. The Metropolitan Police must ensure this never happens again. The IPCC report becomes required reading for every officer in Britain. The lessons are clear. Evidence over intuition, science over profiling, humility over certainty. 2011. Colin Stagg opens his mailbox and finds an official letter from the Metropolitan Police. His heart sinks. What now? More questions? More accusations? But the letter contains something unexpected, a notification that he was a victim of phone hacking. During the years following his acquittal, the News of the World and other tabloids illegally accessed his voicemails, monitored his communications, invaded his privacy in search of stories. The phone hacking scandal is erupting across Britain. Dozens of public figures, celebrities, crime victims, families of murder victims, are learning they were targeted. The practices were widespread, unethical, and in many cases, illegal. For Stagg, the revelation is both infuriating and validating. He always suspected the press knew things they shouldn't have known. Now he has proof. The same media that vilified him, that convicted him in the court of public opinion, was actively breaking the law to dig up dirt. He contemplates legal action. The News of the World has since closed amid the scandal, but parent company News International faces multiple lawsuits. Stagg consults solicitors. The case is strong. The hacking occurred during a vulnerable period. The invasion of privacy compounded the damage from the wrongful prosecution. The media, meanwhile, issues quiet apologies. Some journalists express regret. Others defend their actions as public interest journalism. The debate rages. Where is the line between holding the powerful accountable and destroying the powerless? Stagg eventually decides against a prolonged legal battle. He has spent too many years fighting. The compensation from the Home Office has given him financial security. He wants peace, not more courtroom drama. But the phone hacking revelation adds another layer to his story. He was not just wrongly accused. He was hunted, exploited, his privacy shredded for headlines. The institutions meant to protect citizens, police, press, justice system, all failed him in different ways. In interviews, Stagg is philosophical. I don't have bitterness anymore. What good would it do? I just want to be left alone to live my life. He has remarried. He has children. He works a quiet job. The notoriety has faded, replaced by cautious anonymity, but he will never fully escape the case. His name is forever linked to Rachael Nickell's murder, not as perpetrator, but as collateral damage. March 2012, the Metropolitan Police hold a press conference at New Scotland Yard. Assistant Commissioner John Yates, one of the senior officers involved in the final stages of the Napper investigation, stands at a podium surrounded by reporters. Today, on behalf of the Metropolitan Police Service, I wish to make a formal public apology to Colin Stagg. The words are measured, carefully vetted by legal team, but they carry weight. In August 1993, Mr. Stagg was wrongly accused of the murder of Rachael Nickell. He was subjected to investigative tactics that were inappropriate and harmful. He spent 14 months in custody awaiting trial for a crime he did not commit. The case against him collapsed, but the damage to his reputation and his life was immense. Yates pauses. The Metropolitan Police acknowledges that Mr. Stagg suffered irreparable harm. We recognize that our actions contributed to years of public suspicion and personal hardship. For this, we are deeply sorry. The apology is broadcast live. Newspapers print the full statement. It is a rare moment of institutional accountability, an admission that the system failed, that a man's life was destroyed by those meant to protect him. Colin Stagg watches the press conference from his home. He feels no triumph, just a quiet sense of validation. The police have finally, publicly, admitted the truth. He releases a statement through his solicitor. I accept the Metropolitan Police's apology. I have forgiven them. What happened to me was a terrible mistake, but holding on to anger won't change the past. I just hope lessons have been learned. The public reaction is mixed. Some applaud Stagg's grace. Others question why it took so long. The £706,000 compensation was paid in 2008. The apology comes 4 years later. Why the delay? Behind the scenes, the answer is bureaucratic caution. Legal advisors worried that a public apology might open the door to further lawsuits. Insurance companies balked, but eventually decency prevailed. The apology was necessary, not just legally, but morally. For Andre Hanscom and Alexander, the apology to Stagg is bittersweet. They are glad an innocent man has been exonerated, but they also know that the failures that hurt Stagg are the same failures that allowed Napper to kill their loved one. Justice is messy. It is incomplete, but it is better than silence. The years following Napper's conviction bring reflection. Academics, forensic scientists, legal scholars, and police trainers study the case obsessively. It becomes a touchstone, an example of everything that can go wrong in a criminal investigation and everything that can go right when science prevails. Dr. Angela Gallup publishes papers on the Rachael Nickell case. She lectures at universities, explaining how DNA technology advanced from the crude methods of 1992 to the sophisticated techniques of the 2000s. This case proves that evidence never truly disappears, she says. It waits, and when technology catches up, truth emerges. Police academies incorporate the case into training programs. Detectives learn about tunnel vision, the danger of fixating on a single suspect to the exclusion of all others. They study the ethical boundaries of undercover operations. They discuss the limits of psychological profiling, the risks of relying too heavily on expert opinion without corroborating evidence. Forensic psychology programs analyze Paul Britton's role. His profile of the killer was not entirely wrong. Napper did have violent sexual fantasies, did struggle with relationships, did fit parts of the profile, but profiles are not proof. They are investigative tools, not evidence. The mistake was treating Britton's theories as certainties. Law schools debate Mr. Justice Ognall's 1994 ruling. Was he right to exclude the undercover evidence? In hindsight, absolutely. But at the time, the decision was controversial. The case reinforces the principle that fairness matters more than expediency, that the integrity of the justice system depends on judges willing to say no to police overreach. The IPCC report becomes required reading. Its lessons are stark. Follow every lead, question every assumption, never dismiss warnings because they don't fit the narrative. For the victims, Rachael, Samantha, Jasmine, the countless women Napper assaulted, the academic discussions feel distant. Their suffering was real, their loss is permanent. But if the case prevents future failures, if it makes investigators more careful, more humble, more scientific, then perhaps some meaning can be salvaged from tragedy. The Rachael Nickell case is no longer just a murder. It is a case study in human fallibility, and the redemptive power of persistence. 2021. Channel 4 broadcast Deceit, a 4-part drama based on Operation Edsel, starring Neve Algar as the undercover officer, renamed Sadie Byrne to protect Lizzie James's real identity. The series examines the honey trap from a feminist perspective, exploring the toxic sexual politics of the early 1990s and the pressure placed on a young woman to become bait. The series reignites national conversation. Viewers who lived through the original case revisit their memories. Younger audiences encounter the story for the first time. Social media explodes with debate. Was Operation Edsel ethical? Should undercover officers ever be asked to manufacture romantic relationships? What responsibility do institutions have to protect their operatives? Colin Stagg collaborates with the production, wanting his innocence definitively portrayed. He appears in documentary segments accompanying the drama. Now in his 60s, he is reflective, soft-spoken, bearing the emotional scars but no longer defined solely by the case. Streaming platforms pick up older documentaries. The BBC revisits the case in forensic detail. YouTube channels analyze the evidence. Podcasts dissect the investigation. A new generation discovers the story, asks new questions, applies contemporary standards to past failures. Alexander Hanscom, now 31, gives his first major interview. In Death on the Common, My Mother's Murder, he speaks about growing up with a trauma he cannot remember but can never escape. I have no memory of the attack, but I've spent my whole life living with its consequences. He and his father, Andre, returned to Wimbledon Common for the documentary. It is the first time Alexander has been back since childhood. Standing where his mother died, he is composed but visibly emotional. She deserved better, not just from her killer, but from the system meant to protect her. The documentary is cathartic. It humanizes the statistics, reminds viewers that behind every case file is a person, a family, a life interrupted. Culturally, the Rachael Nickell case endures because it forces uncomfortable questions. How much pressure should we place on police to solve crimes quickly? When does the pursuit of justice become injustice? Can we balance public safety with individual rights? And when forensic science reveals truth years late, how do we reconcile the damage done in the meantime? In 2025, the case remains relevant. True crime podcasts revisit it. Criminology students write theses. The Metropolitan Police still reference it in ethics training. The truth, though delayed for 16 years, finally found its witness. Justice came late, but it came.